Hi everyone, and welcome back to English for You. I'm Pat.
I'm Jonathan.
And we're on day 2 of this month's story article, The Midnight Library. So we started yesterday and we met Nora, who is having a bad time in her life. She doesn't speak to her brother Joe, and she doesn't speak to her best friend Izzy, who moved to Australia.
She had dreams of music and swimming, but she lost them all. She doesn't have any hope of doing those anymore.
And what's worse, she broke up with Dan, who was her fiancé. So they were going to be married, but then they broke up. And that's not all.
No, she loses her job, her piano student quits, and her elderly neighbor doesn't want her help anymore, so she feels useless.
No one needs Nora. She is very unhappy, and we saw that she takes a lot of pills to kill herself. But the story doesn't quite end there.
That's right. She wakes up in a library, and Mrs. Elm, her old school librarian, is there.
What is going on here? Is this real? Is this a dream? Is it something else? Let's find out by reading through day 2 of our story, The Midnight Library.
Reading.
The Midnight Library. Mrs. Elm tells me I'm the Midnight Library. All its books contain lives I could have lived. Mrs. Elm says I can try on these lives to see how different they are. So first, I choose the one where I married Dan. I learn we've opened a pub together in rural England. This was Dan's dream, but seeing it come true, I realize it's not great. Our relationship has many problems. I also remember how he didn't support my dreams in my original life. I let go of my regret about not choosing Dan and return to the Midnight Library. I try on many other lives. In one, I keep Voltaire indoors at night, and in another, I compete at the Olympics. I follow Izzy to Australia, and I become a famous rock star. All of them have positives and negatives, but I always return to the library. As I see these various lives, though, I better understand the people I knew. I forgive others as well as myself for many mistakes.
Okay, so our article says, Mrs. Elm tells me I'm in the Midnight Library. So we don't know why Mrs. Elm is there or how she got here, but hopefully we'll find out as the story goes on.
Yeah, the name Midnight Library, there is significance to this. Don't forget the name. We will come back to it later in the story. But as with any library, it's full of books, but these aren't just books you pick up and borrow and read. The article says, all its books contain lives I could have lived. So this is the kind of the real interesting idea of this story. The books contain lives, and these are not just other people's lives, these are different directions that Nora could have gone. If things had happened differently, she could have been this kind of life or had this kind of life. But let's look at the word contain first. The word contain means to have within. You might say, what does this box contain? What does this bag contain? Or you could talk about, what does this dish contain? Meaning, what is in this recipe? What ingredients go into the food? So what we're saying is what's written on the pages of the book are different people's lives, a description of what happens to them, where they go, who they meet, what they do. And here's another example of this vocabulary word. This book contains many different recipes for Thai dishes.
The other phrase we have in here is could have. Could have means something that was possible in the past, but it did not happen. Sometimes that's because something prevented it. I could have met my friend Sally at lunch today, but she had a meeting, so we weren't able to do it. An example sentence, I could have had scrambled eggs for breakfast, but I decided to have oatmeal instead.
So we're suggesting really that these books contain different possibilities. Now, I'm sure if you think back on your life, even you guys who are, 16, 15 or whatever, you think, well, what would have happened? What could have happened if I'd done this instead of this? Like if I'd never come to Taiwan, how would my life be different? So almost every time there's a choice, you could go off in two different directions, and each one leads to a different life. And all of these lives for Nora are written down in this library. And we see in the article, Mrs. Elm says, I can try on these lives to see how different they are. And I guess what we mean by try on is that she can live that life for a while. She can kind of go into that book, that life, experience it, and see what it would have been like.
The article says, so first, I choose the one where I marry Dan. So obviously, she really wants to know if she had married Dan, what would their life have turned out to be like? And this is what she's going to learn from this book.
Right. I learn we've opened a pub together in rural England. Okay, that sounds interesting. It sounds different. But what is a pub? Well, the word pub is short for public house. It's a place that serves alcohol, so it has a bar, but it will also have food. There's a kitchen for restaurants, and in British culture and other cultures, a pub is a place where people gather. You meet friends there. You might watch some sport on the TV, play some games like pools or darts. There could be quiz nights. You sit around and chat with your friends and catch up. It is a house for the public. You kind of all go there. And yes, you can have a drink there, but it's not just like a bar where there isn't much else going on. There's a lot more stuff going on in a pub, and in British culture, it is kind of the centre for a lot of social activity. So here's an example. The three co-workers often go to the pub on Friday night after work.
When I went to England many years ago, I made a point to visit as many pubs as I could. And yes, it was quite a good experience.
We've got one of the oldest pubs in the world in my hometown. Apparently, it was built in 1189.
Oh, my goodness.
That's what they say. But it is inside a cave under a castle, so, it's got that.
Yes.
But this is a pub in rural England.
That's right. Rural is like the countryside, or the opposite of a big city. So if you live in a small place where there's not very many people, where they have big houses and there's lots of space between where people live, that would be a rural area. Here's an example sentence. The rural village has only one bus stop with a bus that comes every hour.
The opposite would be urban. That means in a city. So this is the life that Nora and Dan led, living together and opening a pub. And we see this was Dan's dream. But seeing it come true, I realize it's not great. So this was Dan's dream and it came true. He always wanted to open this pub, and we use the phrase come true to mean it really happens. And we often use it to talk about our dreams. This is a dream come true. What I wanted actually really happened. So it's great for Dan, but not so much for Nora.
That's right. She realizes it's not great. To realize something means to become fully aware of it and clearly understand it. For example, Jack couldn't understand what was wrong with his cat. Then he realized that it was hungry. So she realizes that maybe her life with Dan is not the happy ending that she thought it was.
It is hard work running a pub, and if you're in rural England, there is not that much stuff to do. So if you were used to a busy, exciting city life, a rural pub is kind of not quite what you want. And we see in the article, she says, our relationship has many problems. So a relationship is how two people are connected. Jonathan and I are co-workers, and we're kind of becoming friends as well as he's been here getting longer. But usually when we talk about a relationship and two people are saying this is our relationship and having problems, it's referring more specifically to a romantic relationship, between a boyfriend-girlfriend, boyfriend-boyfriend, husband-wife, whatever. It's that kind of relationship. So we could say Tony was in a relationship with Amanda for 3 years before they broke up. So they had a romantic relationship. They were a couple. They were dating. And Nora's saying that the relationship she has with Dan, even though they're married, it has problems.
That's right. The article says, I also remember how he didn't support my dreams in my original life. So she's thinking back to her real life and how this is likely one of the reasons that they broke up is that she had dreams of things that she wanted to do and she wasn't getting support from him.
And so, maybe that's why they broke up. And it seems that even if they do get married in this other life, they still have a lot of problems. Maybe because they're following Dan's dream and not Nora's, and that makes her think about, well, he never did really support my dreams. And this makes her understand something, going back to that word, realize something. We see in the article, I let go of my regret about not choosing Dan and return to the Midnight Library. So she's learned something here. She's learned that, well, I could have gone with Dan, I could have married him, but if I had, it looks like we wouldn't have been so happy. So, why worry about that? Why look back on that and think bad thoughts? I'm just going to let that go. To let something go means to release something. Now, this could be physically, like let go of someone's hand, let go of someone's shoulder, or it could be mentally. You let go of something. You think, I'm not going to let this bother me anymore. I'm not going to spend time thinking about it. I'm just going to put it in my past and not let it bother my present or future.
Another word she says is regret. She let go of her regret about not choosing Dan. So in this case, regret means the type of sadness that you feel about something you did or didn't do, especially a missed chance or a missed opportunity. For example, Jason had a lot of regrets about not going to the party because he heard it was really wild and fun. Regret can also be a verb, so if you regret doing something, it means you feel sad about what you did or didn't do.
So she looks back and thinks, well, I used to, in my real life, think, oh, why didn't I marry Dan? But now I've learned from taking a little look at this other life, no, it was a good decision. This wouldn't have worked out. We followed his dreams and not my dreams, and we didn't end well. So she thinks, okay, I'm happy that I've learned that. And we now see, I try on many other lives. So she's kind of seeing what would have happened if she'd taken, like, the other road, as it were.
And the article says, in one, I keep Voltaire indoors at night. And in another, I compete at the Olympics. So she's getting to see all these different scenarios and different ideas and how things would have ended up had she made those types of decisions.
Voltaire, of course, is the cat she had, and in her real life, Voltaire was hit by a car around the same time that she decided to commit suicide. So maybe having the cat still around would have given her a reason to keep going. Competed at the Olympics, what would that have been for?
Yeah, well, for swimming, because, if she was able to keep swimming and had a real talent for it, then who knows how far she could have gone. So she gets to see that dream through.
And she tries on a couple of other lives here that we look at. We see in the article, I follow Izzy to Australia, so that's one life, and I become a famous rock star. So you might remember from day one that Izzy is Nora's best friend, but she'd fallen out of contact, she'd lost touch with her. Maybe it's implied they had an argument and Izzy moved to Australia. But in one life, she goes with Izzy and, they stay friends, they have a great time. And we also remember that she was in a band with her brother Joe when she was in her 20s or when she was younger. And in this life, they make it. They become famous. She becomes a famous rock star, which I'm sure must have been great fun to experience in her life.
The article says, all of them have positives and negatives, but I always return to the library. So why does she always return to the library? So we can we get the idea that there's something about the life that she tries on, the life that she experiences, that causes her to say, okay, this is interesting, but this is not the life for me. This is not my choice. And she ends up back where she started.
Yeah, I'd be interested to read the book to find out whether she chooses to come back or whether something just sort of pulls her back. We're not quite sure from reading this version, but we do know that there are good things and bad things about all these different lives. So maybe she looks at the negatives and goes, well, this is good, but this one has got the negative sides as well. And understanding those positives and negatives can be a good thing. The article, or Nora says, as I see these various lives, though, I better understand the people I knew. So we saw earlier how she got to kind of learn a bit more about Dan and how he never supported her. Maybe she finds out more things about Izzy or Joe that make her think, okay, I understand why she moved. I understand why Izzy was angry at me, or I understand why Joe and I fell out. Maybe I understand what I did wrong to cause these things to happen, or maybe what they did wrong, what they could have done differently.
Yes, and the article says, I forgive others as well as myself for many mistakes. So in this case, because she can understand the other people in her life and perhaps understand herself better, she learns to forgive. To forgive means to stop being angry at someone for something that they did. You know, this it's easy to carry around a lot of anger and frustration with yourself or with other people, especially when things in your life are not going well. But she comes to a point where she can let go of all of that anger and forgive people. Here's an example sentence. Pat was angry that I took his sandwich out of the fridge and ate it, but I said I was sorry, and he forgave me. Yeah, you forgive me, right?
Just about, yeah. Buy me another sandwich. It'll all be okay. So we see here that Nora is learning a lot through these different life experiences. But how's the story going to end? We're not quite sure at the moment, and we'll have to come back tomorrow to find out. Right now, it's time for our For You Chat question.
For You Chat.
So our chat question for today is, what do you think makes a happy life? How can people achieve happiness?
Well, actually, I've done reading on this, and scientifically, the consensus is that happiness is best achieved through experiences. If you are a person who is, for example, if you have money and you want to spend that money on something that's going to make you happy, you're better served by spending it on positive experiences that you can carry with you your whole life, as opposed to just buying things that, you know, accumulate in your apartment.
Okay.
So I think that one key to happiness is to pursue positive experiences that you can carry with you as you go forward in life.
I would say that I think, how can people achieve happiness? Every person will achieve that, but on their own way. There isn't going to be one way or one answer that does for everybody. Some people will say having a lot of money or things. Some people will say traveling a lot, seeing the world. Some people will say pursuing my own interests. Some people will say being with my friends or family or doing this. There's not going to be one size fits all for everybody here. So how can people achieve happiness? First, they need to figure out what makes them happy. What do they enjoy doing? What gives them meaning? And then doing that, but it's going to be different for everybody. And I think this is maybe something Nora needs to figure out as well. We'll find out if she does in the final day of our article, so join us again for that. For English for You, I'm Pat.
I'm Jonathan.
We'll talk to you again next time. Bye.
Vocabulary Review.
Contain. Jim's bottle usually contains coffee, but sometimes it's just filled with water. Pub. Many people like to drink beer and play games together at this pub. Realize. Sorry, I didn't realize I took your pen. It looks so similar to mine. Relationship. Nathan and Annie have been dating for 6 months, and their relationship is going well. Regret. I have regret about not visiting the Van Gogh Museum when I was in the Netherlands, but I just didn't have time. Forgive. Robin said sorry to her brother for shouting at him, and he forgave her.
智慧小补帖
Rural.
以上节目是由活用空中美语制作，活用空中美语杂志，请洽询全国各大书店。如欲索取试听教材，请来电02-2364-4000 02-2364-4000，或上网查询，网址是 www.english4u.net www.english4u.net